And Karen's in the chat, too. Normally I wouldn't stream tonight, but I didn't get my chess TV time yesterday. And they said I could do it 2 hours tonight. So I said, fine. And so forth. Mainly and so forth. It's looking pretty bright again. Good, good. I'm the brightest. Also, etc. Yeah, that black thing that's on the left side of the chat, like the first 3 lines, I don't know what that is. I've had it the last few streams. I checked all the sources. I don't see what that is even. It's weird. I guess it doesn't really matter, but it's still weird looking. I literally don't know. Maybe I figuratively know. I don't know. It is strange, though. So yeah, today I'll do a recap of day 1, and I should be on Chess TV 9 to 11, and I'll try to end the stream about 5 minutes after 11 or so, mainly or so. Hopefully you can hear me and so forth. Looks like this sounds good. Okay. And so forth. Let's see, child tax credit. Good, good. What if we're children at heart? Does that count? Yes. Monthly installments. All right. Well, the more tax credit we get, the more tax credit we get. Maybe. Discord. Hi from Italy. Yay Ben. 100 centidues. Thank you. Someone give him a sub, etc. Another 100 centidues. EU friendly. That's right. So they're going to put me on Chess TV tonight because of the issues this weekend. Also, I should be on Chess TV tomorrow night at the same time. Wednesday, I'm doing commentary on Arena Kings from, I guess it's 1 to 5 Eastern. So I'll be the Arena Kings host Wednesday. Thanks for the 200 centidues, Curious Champions. Yeah, train. And then starting Saturday, I'm doing Saturday till like the end of the month, I'm going to do World Cup commentary. Today it was Naroditsky, Ifan, and Topalov. I'll be doing it mainly with Naroditsky and a little bit with Danny Wrench, I think. Maybe. And possibly with Ifan. Thanks, Mick Naster. Hooray! Normally I don't prepare my streams. I just sit here and be cranky. But I had to actually move a lot of stuff in the room, move cameras and lights, because we're having a camp and everything's facing the other way and nothing like this is plugged in because the kids are sitting behind me. And also I had to prepare lots of positions from the tournament today, which I wasn't planning on doing. But hopefully I have enough material for you and so forth. Yeah. 100 centidues. How hard are rook, bishop, and rook endings? Depends what kind of pieces you have. Most pieces are pretty hard, so I would say usually it's hard. Let's see. What do I have? No subs? Yay. All right. Is Karen coming today? That's none of your... Oh, is she coming on the stream? She's at home. She's not feeling well, just like me. Nobody's feeling well. I guess I'll move the microphone because Karen's not coming, so I guess that makes more sense if I'm looking at the chat than I'm talking into the mic. I think. Also, it gets in the way of my Perrier. I can't get to sleep. Think about the Perrier. I'll still be cranky, yeah. 100 centidues. Let's see. 100 centidues. Fuel the train. Go train. I've had rook and bishop versus rook twice in rated play, slow chess. I won with the rook and bishop, and I drew with the rook. But I didn't say I know what I was doing, but, you know, something. It was pretty close apart, too. One was in the 1994 U.S. Championship where I drew Victor Fermian. Da-da-da-da-da. Well, Nemo lost because her opponent's better than she is. She's playing a good player. Dun, 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 dun. Hi, viewers. We're going to do a recap of games that I thought were interesting in the World Cup. We're only going to look at one complete game. That'll be at the end. Otherwise, I've got 3, 6, 9. Getting low, getting low, getting low to the window. We have 10 positions from the event, and we'll spend about, I guess, 10 minutes a position, and then we'll spend about 30 minutes on the last game, which was the game of the round. Some people called it the game of the year. It's all right. Matthew Larson, my student. No, I don't teach anymore. Da-da-da-da-da. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, but Prognananha's sister, is she as good as Mamajarov's sister? I think Mamajarov's sister is higher rated. It's close. Yeah, they should play a match. Prague's sister and Mamajarov's sister. I like the two sisters that are the same rating. They're both like 25, 50 FIDE. Muzichuk sisters. The ratings are very similar. Da-da-da-da-da. Does Spencer do remote lessons? Those are the only kind of lessons he does. Yeah. Go Spensenzug. Let's see. Did I do it right? Let's see if I did it right. Yay! Go Spencer. Mamajarov and Grishuk missed their flight. Well, they're not playing today, so that didn't matter. Da-da-da. Alex O. Who's Alex O? What? I don't understand the chat. Da-da-da-da. Dun, 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 dun. Man, I'm talking about the World Cup, and you're talking about the Botes sisters and Levy. Man, harsh. I guess we took it down a notch. Da-da-da-da-da. Ostrovsky. I heard of him. Is he giving them queen odds? I guess they're giving him queen odds because that's the Botes gambit. Yeah, I'm lit as usual. Da, 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 da. Yeah, you guys are interested in stuff that's not really chess. Like PogChamps. Bring back PogChamps. All right, well, this is the World Cup, so we're going to look at some better chess than what you guys like, but you can go to other streams. Botes Live is just chatting now, and then Video Game Pianist plays the piano well. Chess with Ovi. Lots of good content. CL Smith, Chess Weeb. So if you want to see chess that's less good, they got lots of options. Da-da, da-da-da-da. Man, what happened to the train? Did I imagine the train? I guess I did. I think I imagined it. My hotel review. That's correct. Bum, bum, bum. I figure we'll wait till we're on Chess TV before doing the analysis. And we can just say silly stuff in the chat until then. We should be on in less than a minute. Yeah, the World Cup has a strange format. They play 2 games, and if it's 1-1, they have a playoff. And a lot of the players, the top 50 players, aren't playing yet. They get seeded into round 2. I guess that's why Jeffrey Zhang's not playing. I'm not sure which Americans accepted or were invited. I don't know if Wesley's playing. I don't know if Naka's playing. I don't know if Fabi's playing. I don't know. I don't think any of them are playing, but maybe they all are. I don't know. Dominguez. I know Jeffrey's playing, but I guess he starts in about a few days. And so forth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess Mishra is playing for the U.S. In the Women's World Cup, there was a woman I've never heard of who it says is playing for the U.S. I don't think she plays for the U.S. I think it was a mistake. She had very, very long first and last names, maybe Mongolian. Now, she did win, so maybe she does play for the U.S. Also, I found out today that Vladimir Akopian, the Armenian GM, plays for the U.S. now. He even beat Aronian. Aronian still says Armenia and FIDE. I didn't know Vladimir Akopian plays for the U.S. He was at the World Open, so he transferred to the U.S. like under the radar. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would never talk about Kasparov. I would never say anything negative about him. Dun, 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 dun. Mm-hmm. Dun, dun, dun. I guess I'm on Chess TV because I have 769 viewers instead of 300. Hi, Chess TV. And so forth. All right, so the first game was against players who had, I think, the same rating, Martinović and Kulaots, and this position's equal until it wasn't. Now, in this position, White started making mistakes, and the game ended quickly. So, as you can see, the black queen is on the rook, and the knight is defending the rook, and White wanted to get his knight going on the king's side, so he moved his rook somewhere else. And he played rook d2. And of course, rook d2 tempts black at some points to play bishop b4 with a skewer, which does nothing now because I have queen c8 check, and you'll have to move your bishop back to f8. So he wasn't worried about bishop b4. So black played the very accurate h6. Now bishop b4 is a threat because after queen c8 check, I could play king h7. And then the rook is sort of silly. Okay, now in this position, the engine prefers black, even though white is up a pawn, because black has 2 bishops and white's king is not as safe as it could be. This bishop is strangely placed. Because, this sort of double pinned. Okay, and white made the losing move. Knife f5. Knife f5 is winning, but not for white. So black played the obvious bishop b4. And this is bad because if you play queen c8 check, maybe that was his idea. I don't know. And then I go here, you can't play rook d1 which you could have played if the knight was still on e3. But he moved his knight off of e3. So his rook's attacked, and he doesn't have either of these squares to go to. So if he plays, for example, a rook move that allows queen d1 check, he's going to get checkmated. So the only move that makes any sense that doesn't lose material is rook c2. It saves the rook, and it stops queen d1 check. And, if I was playing in a tournament, I might think I'm safe here with white. But unfortunately, we have bishop d3 in an opportune moment. Now, you could play it now and win. The engine wants to play preparatory moves, but this move does win. So, all right. But there's better computer moves, but we won't talk about that. Okay. Now, I don't know when white played knight f5 if he was considering after bishop b4 to play queen c8 and then he changed his mind, or if he had what he did in mind, which doesn't work. Maybe he had it in mind. I don't know. So he played knight h6 check. Maybe when he played knight f5, he thought bishop b4 failed to knight h6. It does not. Thanks, Felix Frias, for the sub. And then, let's see. Somebody else subbed and I forgot. Oh, yeah, TextMate39. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. This move doesn't do anything, so I'm guessing he thought he could play queen c8 check and then realized it was bad, or he forgot about bishop b4 because he always had this move and he forgot that I have lived. I don't know. I don't know why he played knight f5, which is ridiculous after this. I didn't ask him. Victor Andre subscribed. Hooray. Okay, so he played knight h6 and black took. King h7 also wins. Queen c8 check. Always play bishop f8. Bishop c5. Now, maybe white saw this when he played knight f5 and thought he was doing well. Maybe. However, the engine says lots of moves win for black. So if that's what he thought, he was extremely wrong. But not only did black play a winning move here, I find it quite brilliant myself. I do. But yeah, I could see how white thought with the pin on the bishop on f8, looks like white's doing okay here. Jordan Feinberg subscribed. Hooray. Hi, Chess TV. Well, taking the rook doesn't work because queen f8 check and queen f7 check. And only white can win, but I guess it's just perpetual. Unless white has a win I don't see, which is 50-50. You don't understand why bishop f8? Always play bishop f8. Well, funny thing is, king g7 walking into discovered check is better than king h7, which is funny. And in any instance, white's going to play e6. So after king h7, which is not the best move, e6, threatening the rook, and threatening queen h8 check, which will eventually lead to perpetual or mate. In this position, if you take the bishop, I simply take on f7, which is funny. And the problem is, if you take my rook with the bishop, which is terrible, I play queen f5 check. Well, actually, I can play queen g8 mate, which I didn't see, but I saw queen f5 check and then promote to a queen with mate, which I thought was funnier. But, Yeah, and you can't take with the rook either because of the mate. Okay, so in this position, the engine says the only drawing move is f6. Never play f6. Now, also possibly winning is king g7. Possibly. Then e6 check again. Thanks for the $9.99. You've seen my helmet. Then rook takes is winning, as opposed to when you play king h7, because if you take this, now queen g8's not mate. So we can go here, queen g8 and here. And he queens, I guess. You take the queen, and white either has a perpetual or he doesn't, and the engine says he doesn't. And then black's going to be up, a lot of material. So. And the engine says like plus 5,000 or something. So actually, king g7 would win also, but bishop f8 wins more cleanly. Always play bishop f8. After bishop c5, black played a brilliant move here. Queen takes f4. And even though his rook is attacked and his bishop's attacked, queen takes f4 threatens checkmate. And it defends the f pawn. So if white tries to get luffed, and we play rook takes rook, we can't play queen takes and queen f7 check because the queen is defending. And after queen here, it's over. Queen takes f4 is really nice. So he took with check, king h7, and then he resigned. What's funny is white's up a pawn here, but black's threatening rook takes rook, black's threatening queen takes rook, and black's threatening queen f1 mate. And rook f2 doesn't help because of rook d1 check. So that was pretty nice. Queen takes f4. I mean, the position was about equal, and then it was time trouble, obviously, because it was the late 30s. Time control probably a move 40, and black took advantage and won tactically. Stephen Zhu 10. Go Stephen Zhu, but stay there. Etc. Yeah, king g7 seems to win too. Yeah. So forth. Yeah, and there were a lot of games. I mean, it'll happen every round where there was a lot of tactical stuff. Delicious. Okay, next game is Kassis versus Kuzubov. Yeah, I noticed when you have a lot of games lined up in analysis, it always puts white at the bottom if you leave. So I had black at the bottom when black was doing well, but it just puts white at the bottom. Okay, now this position is better for black because white has an isolated pawn. And even though black has a backward pawn on e6, white's king is a little exposed, and black's bishop is better than white's. So black has a pretty nice advantage. And here we have somebody rated about 2,300 with white, and we have a very strong grandmaster with black. And so normally people who aren't super GMs don't necessarily defend very accurately. That's not their strong suit, defending. Their strong suit is beating class players and losing to GMs. So you got to do what you're good at. This guy's good at losing to GMs, so he did what he was good at. Got to do something. Okay, so black played the obvious bishop f6, attacking the f pawn. In fact, I actually wonder why black's bishop was on d8 to start with, like how that happened. I have the game score. It looks like black played bishop d6 to c7 d8. Why did he do that? Nobody knows. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so in this position, white has two moves that I think are normal, assuming he doesn't want to hang his pawn with check. One is to defend his pawn. Bishop c3 makes more sense than bishop e3, since I just take the bishop on e3 and win. And the other is knight e5. And I'm thinking, if I was white, I think I would just play knight e5, because why not? If he takes the knight, I get rid of my isolated pawn. Now, it turns out, tactically, knight e5 is better than bishop c3. But even if it wasn't, if I didn't calculate anything, I'd still play knight e5. Where else is my knight going to go? I'm going to let him attack my pawn forever? My knight's not going to go here. It's not going to go here. Knight e5 seems good. And the engine says after knight e5, black is up 0.6, which seems fair. Bishop takes, gifted a sub to chess. Okay. All right. So here white blundered. And when you blunder against really high-rated players, then they punish you. He played bishop c3, and this actually loses the game immediately. And probably the reason he didn't see black's forced win is black has to do things that are anti-positional to win. And so Yasser wouldn't like that. But obviously, if it wins a lot of material, then Yasser would change his mind. And this is a problem a lot of the old players have. You know, like Yasser and Kasparov and Karpov and me. Not that I'm in their league, but I mean, I'm old. I'm not as old as them, but I'm trying. Is when you have a good understanding of strategical chess, often you don't look at moves that don't make any sense strategically and positionally. And low-rated players don't care about that. They don't know what that is. And younger players also don't care about that, but for a different reason. Low-rated players don't know what positional and strategical means, so they often play moves that I wouldn't suspect. And young players who are very strong, they know that it's more important to calculate tactics, and sometimes the positional move isn't the move that wins tactically. So I think that's why white missed black's next idea, because the move doesn't make any sense from a strategical point of view. So it's easy to miss. And unfortunately for white, it wins tactically. So if he calculated the tactics, he wouldn't play bishop c3. Thanks, Pinky Jim. Yeah. Okay. So, right. So low-rated players, basically the only move they look at is knight c3. That move doesn't make any sense, and that's why they're low-rated. But it turns out in this position, knight takes c3 wins tactically. And knight takes c3 is a terrible strategical move because it gets rid of this great knight for this terrible bishop, and it unisolates this pawn, and it leaves this pawn under attack. So, except for the fact that black wins immediately, this is a silly move. And that's probably why white missed it. Takes, and then as was pointed out in the chat, rook takes c3. And if black doesn't play rook takes c3, then knight here doesn't make any sense. We've solidified this pawn. We've weakened this pawn. We got rid of our great knight. That bishop was stupid. But okay, now white's position collapses. So the game ended immediately because white played bishop c3 instead of playing knight e5 and losing in 40 more moves, probably. Instead, he lost in 2 moves. What a lot of people do to avoid getting better at chess is they rationalize, well, I didn't see knight c3, rook c3, but my game was bad anyway. And that's not, I mean, it's a blunder, bishop c3. It's a terrible move. And it loses immediately, and white resigned here.
Because if white takes the rook, obviously he loses his queen. But if he doesn't take the rook, he's going to, his knight's attacked, and this is attacked, and this is, So it doesn't really matter what he does. He's getting destroyed. And the engine says black is up 6.5. That's the weak engine. Homomorphic 9 subscribe. Charlotte Chess Center gifted 5 subs. And then I'd like to point out something I learned today that I probably should have known a long time ago. Charlotte Chess Center, a.k.a. Peter Giannatos, a.k.a. Peter Giannatus, he just had a book published by New in Chess about teaching chess and learning chess and lessons and so forth. So you need to buy that book. Basically, everybody needs to buy it, whether you teach kids or you're learning yourself. It has a lot of lessons and so forth. Seems like a great book. So buy that book. Do as I say. And so forth. But yeah, congratulations, Peter. I didn't know you were having a book published by New in Chess. Yeah. What's the book called? Only Charlotte Chess Center knows. Yeah, it's called Heart. See? Yeah. If you never heard of chess, still buy the book. That's right. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you've heard of chess, just buy the book. Do as I say. Yeah, of course you can post a link, although, I don't know how to give you permission technically. Karen or some other mod can do that. Or, yeah, you could also send me the link and I can do it. You could private message me the link on somehow. MoveBot remove timeout. What? Yeah, I don't know how to let you post a link. I don't know how to give you permission. Maybe Karen knows. Yeah, if somebody knows how to let it. Okay, now you can post it because Karen said so. Yeah. Yeah, aren't you a VIP or something? Can't you just do it anyway? Just posted. What? I didn't see it. Where is it? Because you tried to post it and Mubak got mad at you. Just posted. I don't see it. Champ 1977. Thanks for the sub. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, let me VIP him. Okay, now you're a VIP. I don't know if you can post now, like without me helping you, but it can't hurt. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, buy that book. Do as I say. Yeah. Yeah, everyone's first chess workbook. See my vest, made from real gorilla chest. Okay, so white resigned and so forth. All right. Okay, this is the most interesting for me, was this game of Andrew Tang's. His opponent was slightly higher rated than him, and in this position, white blundered, and then 3 moves later, black blundered, but I don't blame black for not playing the winning move, and I barely blame white. I don't really blame either one of them. And white played a move that's sort of obvious because if white moves his king, he was probably worried about queen takes a2. And the engine says, don't worry about it. Queen e5 check is still a draw. But, why give a pawn away when you don't have to? So he should just move his king and it's equal, but not seeing the queen e5 check fully equalizes because you're down a pawn, I understand that. And he either miscalculated or missed what Tang did, and Tang also missed it. So he played queen e4, which actually loses, surprisingly. And not only is it surprising, if you don't have a strong enough engine, you won't know that it loses. The engine has to be very high depth to see that black's winning. And it should be a good engine. Now, first of all, if I had white here, knowing me, I'd probably miss my opponent's next move. But even if I did see it, I wouldn't suspect that I was losing. I'd suspect I might be losing, but I would think probably not. And Queen e4 is actually a losing move. Yeah. Amazing. So the truth hurts. That's right. You scary. I think some noise happened. Pinky Jim gifted a sub. Oh, yeah, 1 cent to do. Conor McGregor's leg, yeah. All right. So, yeah, this is very instructive. So I didn't like it. If I want to see something very instructive, I'll watch Tombstone. Okay, so black played rook e8, which is correct. It's technically correct, so it's the most correct. You can't take the rook because it's illegal, which wouldn't stop some kids. So you have to take the queen, and then check. You have to attack the rook. Take. In this position, black's winning, but he only has one winning move, and he didn't play it. And when I was looking at the game while it was being played, and the engine said this move was winning, I was trying to think why, and then I figured out why. If I was playing in a slow tournament, I don't think I would ever play this move. I don't think I would. And I think if somebody told me black to play and win, I still don't think I would play the move. So, I mean, now I would because I know the answer, but before that. And again, your engine has to be pretty good to find it. Yeah. And so forth. Let's see. Kevin Hart, 51, subscribed. Hooray. That's even better than when Dave Chappelle subscribes. Yeah. And so forth. Now, these things are too complicated for, players who are not super GMs, even to explain to you. Of course, you all have your engines going, and you're like, is it this? Because your engine says it is. One guy said, aren't there 2 winning moves? Because the engine says 2 moves give a big plus. That's funny. All right. But anyway, you have to understand why the move is winning. So even if you're using your engine, which you are, you don't understand why this move is winning and why other moves aren't. So I'll try to explain it to you. Yeah. And so forth. All right. Now, what a lot of you do, basically every move of your lives, is you play with general principles and never calculate because you think calculating is too hard, which, it might be. And, you just don't want to. You're lazy. Now here, you have to have a deep understanding of what's happening plus calculate. And since you don't have either one, you can't solve it. So in this position, since both sides can get a passed pawn where they have the pawn majority, you would assume black gets a passed pawn, white gets a passed pawn, and the game ends in a draw, and that's what happened. Although it was really exciting what happened. There were like 50 passed pawns. Okay, but I digress. Now, there's no way white can stop black from getting a passed pawn. F5 does the job immediately. And you can't stop it. And what you need to do is do something weird with black. Okay, so the way white gets a passed pawn is white either plays A4, and then when you take it, he plays C4 and gets a passed D pawn. Probably would preface that with King D3, either now or later. Or white can play B3, C4, and get a passed pawn that way. Okay. And it turns out black can not necessarily prevent that, but black can do something very weird, which makes that lose. And I don't blame him at all for not seeing it. Okay, so what black needs to do is prevent white from doing that. So the winning move is a4. It's possible that king f8 also wins. That's not a move I would ever consider. Okay, now a4 obviously stops white from playing a4, because that's the end of that. And also c4 is no good. So white can either lose slowly by black has 3-2 and just gets a pass pawn and wins. Or white can say, well, I have 4-3, so I need to get a pass pawn also. So he plays, let's say, b3, the obvious move. And now the point of a4 is to play a3. And the long-term idea is we're going to give white 2 pass center pawns, and we're going to have pass pawns on both sides. Easy to understand if you're a super grandmaster, but if you're not, then you're furrowing your brow in a vain attempt to understand what I'm talking about. So let me give you an example of just like normal boring play. Here, to play c4, and now the engine says king f8, which again I understand why you play king f8 now, but okay. And now eventually black's going to win with his extra pawn on the king side, and if white plays c4 and says, what's the big deal? Why isn't white winning? After takes, you play b4. Okay. And the idea is this is going to be a passed pawn, or white's going to prevent it, and then black's going to do this. And white's king can't stop b3 and f1, whereas black's king can easily stop the 2 pawns because the king just walks in front of him. Well, b3 wins immediately, so king c2 is the only move. And then f5, and so forth. And if your king ever tries to stop it, b3 wins. These pawns aren't dangerous because the black king easily stops them. So I understand not seeing that idea. And you don't want to move your king up when white's getting these passed pawns. You want your king to stop them. And you want to be able to pretend like you're getting a passed pawn also. Now, white doesn't have to play b3 and let black play a3 and so forth. But if he doesn't, white doesn't have counterplay. Black just has 3-2 and wins. He moves his pawns and moves his king, and black's a pawn up. And if white uses his extra pawn to get a passed pawn, unfortunately, this a4 and then takes in b4 always wins, which is weird, but that's the way it is. And Andrew Tang didn't see or understand that, and I perfectly understand that. I'm guessing if somebody in the top 10 in the world was black, maybe they would play a4. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, well, when you say amazing concept by Tang, he didn't see any of that. So, it's an amazing concept, just not by Tang. Now, luckily, Tang didn't do that because I showed you anyway, but the actual game was crazy like Fox News. And it wasn't badly played, it was just crazy. Like, it's more exciting than that. So, Tang, he played f5, and after takes, he played g5, which is very understandable. And the reason it's understandable is black wants the passed pawn as far, that way as possible, so white can't get his king over to the queen side. And so you can't save your f-pawn. You can't play king here, because after king here, I can play h5. And I'm going to win your pawn anyway. I want to get a passed pawn over here, and while your king is getting it, then I walk in and win. So I understand g5. Good move. Okay. And then white tried to get his passed pawn, over there. And Now, black doesn't have the time to win with this the same as he did before, because white has a passed pawn, not black, because of what's already transpired. So this would win if black had a passed f pawn, but the engine says this does not win now. I play king c2, and if you try to queen, white has a passed pawn here and a passed pawn here. So the engine says it's a draw because it's looking 40 moves ahead. Okay. So after king d3, he played h5, and he played a4, which is excellent. Good move. You have to take on a4, otherwise white gets a queen. c4, excellent. And the engine says all moves draw, but that's because the engine sees like 40 moves ahead. If you don't see 40 moves ahead and you're actually playing the game, you're like, I don't know. You calculate as well as you can, and you hope that you're right. And the players played well. Okay, dc4 is fine. King c4 is forced. g4. Now, it's obvious black is going to queen. Because, if it's black's move, he queens. And if white plays the obvious hg4, which he did, now after h4, black queens. If black takes this, my king can stop the pawn. After h4, my king cannot stop the pawn. Now taking this also draws. It's also a draw. This is the only drawing move. Then here. Then this is the only drawing move. Then here. And then you have to move your king somewhere. Takes, here. King f2, here, and he's just in time to draw. Okay. The good player is always lucky. Okay, so Andrew played h4. Now, I guarantee black's going to queen, so white has to queen also. So white played d5. Now, obviously, if both sides just move their pawns, black queens and white queens. And white's not going to lose. White has two connected passed pawns. It's a draw, but white's not going to lose. Okay, so black plays king over, and he says, well, that pawn's not going to queen, and that pawn is going to queen, so maybe I can win. In this position, white has one move that doesn't lose. Can anybody find it other than the guy who had white? Who did find it? Delicious. If you don't like the lighting, or you don't like my stream, or you don't like the games, you're not forced to watch the stream. You can watch something else. You can take a nap. You can go eat. You don't have to watch my stream. It's not required by law. I mean, it should be. So if you don't like this stream, don't watch it. Then you don't have to complain anymore. I mean, like, let's say you don't like Seinfeld. You have brain damage or something. And you're like, I don't like Seinfeld. Don't watch it. Let's say you like Two Broke Girls because you have extensive brain damage. And you're like, I like Two Broke Girls. Go watch Two Broke Girls, but don't tell anybody because you won't have any friends anymore. And they might put you away for having, mental problems. So you don't have to talk about what you like and don't like in the stream. You can keep that to yourself. Good job. All right. Hopefully you don't like Two Broke Girls. Bowler CSGO subscribed. Good. Excellent. Yeah. Da-da. Yeah. I didn't say there were two winning moves. Some other guy said that. Okay, so always play f6. Now, after f6, white's threatening to win with d7 and then d8. So, for example, not only was f6 the only move that doesn't lose, black has one move that doesn't lose here. h2 actually loses because I go here, and then white's winning. White has forced checkmate. Even if it wasn't checkmate, he'd be winning. So after f6, black must play king e8. It's the only move that draws. Now here, white has two drawing moves. He could play f7 check or g5. They both draw. He played g5, h2. Now he has one move that draws, f7 check. You have to take it. And then g6 check. I think g6 is the only move that draws. Yeah, d7 loses. Yeah. Yeah, now one of the pawns is going to queen. So that's what happened. And black is slightly better because he's going to be up a pawn or two. This is actually quite funny. If you take this pawn, it's checkmate. But he didn't do that. He took this pawn. And here, obviously, if you lose this pawn, it's a draw. And this king doesn't have any shelter. So it's a pretty easy draw. I just kept checking him. Yeah, the queen can't block. So there's no blocking. You know, if you go here, I go here. You can never block with the queen. The queen's stuck here. So in this position, they actually agreed to a draw. I mean, I wouldn't agree to a draw. I would go here and hope that my opponent checks me here, which also draws. But at least I have a chance to win now. The engine says I have no chance to win. I would think I have a chance to win. I think I would. And the engine's like, no, you don't. It says every check draws. Obviously, this check and this check don't draw because then I play this check. So you got to watch it. But it's still... But anyway, queen e4 check is an easier draw because you just make sure the queen can never get in the way. So after Tang did not play a4 and played f5, the rest of the moves were fine. And the game ended in a draw as it should have. Yeah. Etc. d7, king e7, f6. Well, in your line, Max McCall, king d8, you wouldn't do that. You'd take the pawn. That was a funny variation you give. I like that. Yeah, I forgot how you started it. Let's see. What did you give? It was funny what you said. D7, king e7, f6 check. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, you gave this line and you gave here, but taking the pawn would win. So yeah, that move you have to see. But it was still funny. And so forth. Anyway, it was good until it wasn't. So queen e4 was a losing move, and Andrew missed a4 winning. And so forth. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, seeing the idea a4, b3, a3, c4, dc, bc, b4, who's going to see that? The engine will. Yeah. So that was pretty cool to, that exists. Only Peter can appreciate it, but you guys can pretend to appreciate it. So in this position, a4 wins. But I mean, you have to see the idea that that you're playing d takes at b4, and then you win. So you got to figure all that out beforehand, and it's move 42, so they should have had more time. But still, it's hard to believe after this you go here and you give the guy two connected passed pawns, but that's what you do. Yeah. Yeah. Tang would be proud that I thought he found that. That's right. Tang would be like, wow, you thought I found that, Peter? Thanks. Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay, this was very funny because the engine said all zeros, then the game ended immediately. So don't blunder. Don't blink. This game ends really quickly. So yeah, Niaz Murshed was the first grandmaster from Bangladesh. Maybe he's still the only one. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. He actually went to school in Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken, which I might be. I don't think I am. I played in a tournament in Pittsburgh before you were born, and Murshed played in it. So there you go. And so forth. Okay. So white played c4 because he had heard somewhere that was explosive. And this position's all zeros, and black made a blunder, losing immediately. Yeah. So g5 is okay. Taking on c4 and then playing g5 is also okay. And moving your queen is okay, like queen b6. But white did not see the threat of c4, didn't see what he was threatening. White's move actually wins right now. And the move that black made it win more. Black's move was much worse than not moving. Okay, but he didn't see what white was threatening. So he played king f8. So make sure the queen has to stay on the rook, and maybe black has some trick so that, white's got to be careful. But king f8 loses immediately. And, he just didn't see what white could do, which is understandable. It's a little bit tricky. So white played the rather obvious d5, attacking the queen. The engine plays crazy moves here because the engine knows it's losing. But black played a normal move, moved his queen. Yeah. And white's a play and win. Anybody? Anyone? See, who else do I have to ban? Okay, you're banned. All right. All right. A couple people got it. I guess they got their engines going. Yeah. Rook takes f7, and black resigned. And what's funny is, if the king was on g8, maybe black could even escape here with like rook e8. Still losing, but not as losing. But it's check. So you have to take... Well, he resigned. Check. You have to go here. Bishop takes f6. Okay, so I'm threatening checkmate. And you can't play rook e8 because I check and I win your rook. So you have to take my bishop to stop this. And you just... I take all the pawns with check. You can't lose your rook. So if you go here, you just lose your rooks. You have to go here. And then, it doesn't matter what you do. You take this. You can't lose your rook. And then the knight's coming in and so forth. Yeah. And the engine says plus 1,000. Yeah. The engine actually gives away its rook. I'm trying to figure out if I don't give away... I guess if I don't give away my rook, I just get checkmated. I would play queen e6 here, but I think the engine plays queen g7. Queen G, they all win. Queen E6. Yeah, it's just announcing mate. Yeah. If you go here, then I assume, well, okay, you can win the rook, but I was gonna play knight G5, which is actually better. And then after king F8, knight G5. Okay. Obviously, white's completely winning. So yeah, rook takes F7, won immediately. It's a capture, it's a check, and black didn't see it. So he played this move, which makes it even stronger. That's why white played c4, so he could play d5 and have e6 for his queen. And if you play g5, then you can't play this d5, rook sack, queen check, because the bishop isn't attacking the knight on f6. So you could take here and play g5 and it's equal, or you could just play g5 and it's equal. But he just didn't see this, 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 and this, so he played random legal moves and resigned. Truth hurts. Back to school. So that game ended pretty quickly. Yeah. Never look at your opponent's checks and captures. That's right. Never. Let's see. Good questions in the chat. Been to Seattle, been to Portland. Good questions. No. Okay, next. Next. Da-da-da-da-da. This I just thought was really cool. There was like all kinds of tactics. It was great. Okay, now in this position, White is already winning or close to winning, but the way he won was really cool. So, okay. So Black played King B6, attacking the knight. That actually helps White. White played the only winning move, but pretty obvious. Rook A3. You can't go here because of the knight. And if you play here, there's a fork. So, okay. Yeah. Now, this is very funny. Black's next move is funny. Now, Black is losing here, but the way Black lost was hilarious. He played Bishop F5 attacking the rook, or Bishop F6. This is funny because of what White's response was. That's why it's funny. Now, if White doesn't play the only move that wins here, he's actually not winning. So I understand Bishop F6. He just didn't see White's next move. And Black is a pawn up here, although it is a doubled pawn. And Bishop F6 only loses because White has a brilliant winning move. And if Black didn't play Bishop F6, he's still losing. So I guess this gives him a better chance because if White doesn't find the winning move, he won't win. Anyway, it was really cool. These games are at my level? No, absolutely not. Yeah. Okay, so White played the only winning move. Rook takes F5. It's funny to play Bishop F6 attacking the rook, and the guy does that. That's when you know you messed up. And if you take, which he didn't, check, and then it doesn't matter where he goes. Checkmate him. Depends which way's check. So forth. And this is the same. All right. So now, not only did he lose a pawn, which didn't matter much, but his bishop's attacked. So that Bishop F6, that's no good. Okay, so he played Bishop E7. Because, it makes sense. Yeah. And you will know his name is the Lord. Because he did it again. Rook takes F7. Oh, man. It's funny because I wasn't Black. If I was Black, it wouldn't be funny. It's the same if you take the rook. It's the same mate. The same deviled egg. Man, you move your bishop attacking the rook, the guy takes the pawn attacking your bishop. Move your bishop, guy takes the pawn attacking your bishop. God damn. Yeah, that was funny. Okay, so now this is funny. Now he plays Rook D7. And the idea is if you take this rook, which is fine, I take your rook and you don't have mate anymore. Remember when this was mate? Because the bishop was on here. Now it's not mate. I mean, White's still winning, but it's not mate. That was his point. So that was funny. After Rook D7, what White did here is hilarious. He kept taking the pawns because the knight couldn't move from D6 because knight C4 check is winning. However, because of Rook D7, now knight C4 check is winning, even with the knight on D6. That's very funny. Unless you have Black, then it's not funny. But I wasn't playing, so it was funny. And now Black resigned. If he takes, we check, and then we check, and so forth. Mainly and so forth. Yeah, the truth hurts. And then you lose your rook, and you're down a lot of material. Man, so this position, it's like not even clear who's better to me. I mean, I have an engine, so I know who's better. But yeah, he got tactically tricked every move. That's why White's higher rated. Go Adly. Hooray for something. Yeah. It's okay if the U.S. loses to Australia because the U.S. wants to be consistent. They're trying to lose every game. And they're doing a good job. Delicious. Granny's Gambit subscribe. Good, good. Go, men at work. So the format, I've noticed in a lot of tournaments, it seems to me the purpose of chess formats in a lot of chess tournaments is to confuse the people who are watching. That's the only purpose. How can we have a format that nobody ever understands? And then they do that, and then that's so. In this tournament, the top 50 seeds have a bye in the first round. And those 50 players join 78 players who win the first round. There's 156 people playing in the first round. Of the 156, they turn into 78, and then, because they win, then they join the 50 who had the bye, and now it goes 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. All right. So that's why a lot of people that you heard of aren't playing now. Confusing the audience. Now, the matches are 2 games. And then if it's 1-1, then they have a playoff after that. So Nemo, as you call her, lost the first game. She needs to win the second game and then go to a playoff. If she loses or draws the second game, then it's over. So for a lot of the people, it's over after 2 days. And so forth. Yeah, unfortunately, people that stream that you enjoy, that you think are good at chess, yeah, they're not going to do well. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, people who do well are the people who are the best. So you have to hope that your favorite streamer is one of the top 20 players in the world, which is unlikely, and that they're playing in the event, which is also unlikely. Then you're good. But if you're like, oh, this streamer's playing that I know, like Jesse February, I mean, sorry. They're going to play 2 games and go home. All right, man, Jesse has a tough pairing. She's playing Gunina. God damn. Also, I think Ushanina lost her first game, paired down like 400 points. And Ushanina's the one who's famous for not mating with bishop and knight. Got to be famous for something. Yeah, so if your favorite streamer is Ali Reza or Magnus, they'll be here for a few days. They won't be here just 2 days. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Right, if I was your favorite streamer, which is unlikely, and then I played in the World Cup, you would also be sad. Etc. Yeah. And so I don't know what the playoff format is. 2 rapid games and blitz game. Yeah. How long would I last? That's a Karen question. Okay, next game. All right, this game was really cool. So in this position, White should play the pedantic H3, putting it in H, getting Luft, not war, and the engine prefers White. But White had all he could stands. He can't stands no more. And he played a move because the crowd likes it. You got to play for the crowd. The crowd doesn't like H3. Boo, boo. The crowd likes what he did. Okay, he played Knight D4, confusing the audience. Delicious. That gives away most of White's advantage, but the shock value's through the roof. If you take with a knight and I take your queen, it's check, so you can't mate me. And if you take with a queen and I take, then I win a queen. So knight d4 check's a cool move. Okay, he played king b7, which is correct. And now the engine wants him to go back, which is funny. But he played check, or he played knight e6, okay, giving away all of his advantage. And then he played check. And now it should be a draw. Should be a draw. Okay, and then h3. Okay, now in this position, I don't blame black for what he did. I don't blame him. The correct move for black is very hard to play. I probably would play the same bad move that he played. And then the next move he played was even worse. That move I wouldn't play because I wouldn't see enough to play it. I'm not good enough to play it. So he made a mistake here and then he blundered. The correct move, which is equal, is to take this knight, take the knight with check, and then king c8's the only move. Otherwise you lose. And the engine says this is all zeros. Now I'd be scared if I was black because it looks like, queen check and rook here. And then, the engine's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It would scare me, but all right. So that's the only way that black can play. Black played a more obvious move. Rook takes a4, defending his knight and winning a pawn. Sounds good. Okay, now probably white could play queen takes g5. The move he played is probably better. Queen d7, threatening the rook. And you can't block with anything. If you block with the queen, knight d8 check wins the queen. The knight can't legally block. The pawn can't legally block. So what white... Now here I would make the right move. I would, because I wouldn't even see the wrong move. The wrong move is too complicated for me. The right move is rook a6. That move seems pretty safe. And the move that white should play, if I had the black pieces, I would miss it. It says that white should play queen f7, threatening knight d8 check, winning the queen. If my opponent played queen f7, I would panic and lose probably. The problem is my queen's defending the knight and my queen's defending c7 and my queen's hanging. So the only good move is king a7, according to the engine. You can't play knight f7 because it's pinned. And then it says that after this, white has winning chances. Check, takes. I guess rook b6. I mean, white's not up any material, but it looks like white's going to be up material because this pawn's hard to defend. This king is really far from these pawns. And white's up like 1.2, it says. I don't know if white would win or not. Anyway, that was best play. Instead, black blundered. It was a really nice blunder. Beautiful. Okay, he played queen c2. And this is amazing because it looks like queen c2 just hangs the piece. So that's why I wouldn't play it. But white had some really nice, black had some nice trick here. Okay, so queen b5 check. Now, the problem is if you, no matter where you move your king, white has the less than obvious move, which I'm sure black missed. And the obvious move doesn't work after king c8. And the reason it doesn't work surprised me. I was like, why doesn't rook takes knight win a piece? He didn't play rook takes knight, but I didn't know why. And so I played rook takes knight so I could see why that doesn't win. And I was really surprised that does not win. Now, if I had black, I wouldn't play queen c2 because I would think queen check, rook takes win a piece, and I would end my analysis. So I'm not good enough to make that blunder. And the reason this is a draw, amazingly, I don't even believe black saw this. I just think he got lucky. It didn't happen, but is he take and play queen a2, threatening the knight and threatening perpetual, queen a1, queen a5. And it's not even obvious it's a perpetual because after king here, the king can walk out. But the knight doesn't have a plethora of squares. You can't defend the knight. If you go here, here, or here, I take it. If you go here, it's very funny. I can fork your queen and knight. And actually, I'm probably winning. Black probably is winning here. And if you play knight g5, I check and I can win the knight. And once again, black's probably better. Black has a passed pawn and white doesn't. So I don't know if black saw that after rook takes knight, he would take and go here and he's fine. It's a weird variation, but all right. Anyway, after this, white played the winning move that's incredibly winning. Not rook takes knight. It's very hard to see because it prevents him from taking the knight. Usually when you could take a piece, you don't make a move where you can't take it anymore. That's not a move you think of. And he played rook f1, exclam. And now, even the most dim-witted individual with an advanced degree in hyperbolic topology can see that white has a mating attack here. Now we're doing good with mating the black king, and these pieces are not good for defending. There's good and there's not good. Those aren't good. And luckily, the game ended in a really nice way. I thought it was nice. You may differ. Knight c6. So now after check, you can play king d7. Reasonable. And then he played rook d8 check. That's really nice. So obviously you can't take it because it's illegal. And if you take the knight, you can also play king e7. I go check, check, and mate, which is nice. And if you play king e7, I do the same thing, but I have to take this with check first, and it's the same thing. So after rook d8 check, he resigned. So that was pretty cool. The game was good for white, then it was equal, and then black just lost immediately. And it probably wasn't time trouble because it was move 50. It might have been, but I think rook f1's an easy move to miss. What I'm confused about is the move queen c2. Did he see after this that this move doesn't win because of this? I mean, that's hard to see. If he saw that, that's amazing. If he didn't see that, queen c2 is just stupid. It just hangs a knight. So either he saw queen a2 draws, or he was lucky that rook takes knight doesn't win. It's hard to believe he didn't see queen b5 check, rook takes knight. That seems pretty obvious. Like rook takes knight. So I guess he did see that takes and queen a2 draws. But he didn't see rook f1, which just the game's over after rook f1. Man, the truth hurts. Yeah, this is annoying. God damn. There's annoying and there's very annoying. Now, queen c6 is the engine move, which was not played. Then rook f8, and then queen f5. And obviously, black either perpetuals or resigns. And there ain't no perpetual. So, you're getting your king crushed. You have to check and play king c6 to escape. And then knight d4 check, and queen here check wins the rook at least. I mean, the engine announces mate, but obviously white's winning here. Yeah, somehow the guy I always heard of wins, the guy I never heard of loses. Coincidence, I guess. In the line with rook a6, is there rook b4, queen c7? Rook a6, rook b4, queen b4, queen c7. There is. Then I go here because it's the only legal move. You try, but you fail miserably. The lesson is never try. It says that white can draw by checking and taking this. But yeah, I mean, white's down the exchange here. Simpsons, USA Basketball. They're the new Kasparov. Yeah. And so forth. Conor McGregor's leg is a great handle. I like that handle. Yeah. All right. You're so next. All right. This was really cool, I thought. I want to show you the last few moves, too. Okay. So in this position, obviously black's better because, my rook's behind my passed pawn. And I think if both sides play better than perfect, white has good drawing chances, but white has to make his rook passive. And the engine thinks that black should win anyway, like in 1,000 moves. Anyway, white didn't play passively. He played here. Okay, and then he decided not to play rook h1. He played here, hoping that h1 queen doesn't win. Or if it does win, his opponent wouldn't play it. And what white wants to do is not play rook h1, wants to play king h1. And then his rook can go win this pawn, and looks like a draw. So rook h1, if I don't take that pawn, then I'm going to lose. My rook can't move. So rook h1, he figured lost, which he's right. Rook h1, I can move my king, and if you take, and this is the same as the game, but this is much better for black. Okay, so he tried not to do that, and black played the correct move, probably the only way to win, which is to promote the pawn. It's probably the only winning way. I think if white plays king h1, he's drawing. And again, I rag on you guys a lot, but I'm right, and you need to be ragged on. And this reminds me of backgammon for a second. In backgammon, a friend of mine was getting lessons, and he was told by his teacher how to count, pips quickly in the end game, and he said, "Yeah, I don't want to do that." And the other guy's like, "Well, you have to because he's trying to play well." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't want to. It takes too long." Anyway, eventually he gave in, and he became a very good player. Actually, strangely, he was 2,300 at chess, so it's easy to become good at backgammon when you understand chess. But anyway, so this is like a lot of you guys. You guys are like, "I'm going to say it's a draw." And your friend is like, "I'm going to say it's a win." Which one of us is right? You're both wrong. You're not giving an informed opinion. You're just saying one of the possible answers. That's neither one's right. Now, I had a history teacher who was crazy when I was at Wayne State University. And he was talking about how the famous scientists of the past, when they predicted something that they technically couldn't measure, and then they found out 300, 500, 1,000 years later that was correct, he would say, well, they weren't correct. They just said something. And then somebody else said something else. That's not being correct. That's, you said something and it happened to be true, but you didn't know it was true. You could have said anything. That doesn't make you smart. That makes you, fortuitous for that particular event. So, for example, when you say Milwaukee is going to win game 4, and then your friend says Phoenix is going to win game 4, and then their friend says the game won't be played because the world's going to end. I mean, that guy's going to get big odds, but if he's right, he did better than you guys because he picked something that's really unlikely. You guys picked something that was 50-50. You can't say you were right and your friend was wrong because you just said something random, and one of the two has to be true. So the way to get good at chess, if you want to get good at chess, which most of you don't, is you have to actually figure out if this is a win or a draw by calculating accurately. And most of you are like, I don't want to do that because I'm lazy, or I can't do that, it's too hard. If that's your attitude, you're not going to get better at chess. I mean, you can calculate it wrong, but at least you tried. Now, the question is, I know the answer to the question. When black played h1 queen, did he say, I hope this wins, or did he say, yeah, I calculate everything, I'm winning? And it could be he calculated everything, thought he was winning, but he was wrong. He's like, oh, I missed, whatever. Like, that's what happens to me. So if I played h1 queen, I know that I'm winning. It could be I'm wrong. I calculated 20 moves ahead and I made a mistake. But I'm not like, man, I hope that wins. And that's what all of you do. Like, you guys would play king e6, and I'm like, why didn't you play h1 queen? And you're like, I don't know, he takes it, and then I ended my analysis. And then you're like, when am I going to be a grandmaster? I'm 1,200. Is it a year or 2 years? All right. Black is a grandmaster, and he's like, h1 queen wins. I've calculated it. Now, you guys at home, if you're watching on the internet, it doesn't matter if black queens or not. You guys are all typing h1 wins, my engine says so. And you don't get better at chess that way either. So basically, none of you get better at chess, and then half the questions in the chat are, can I be a grandmaster in 1 year or 3 years? I'm 25 years old. I learned the rules 3 weeks ago, but I did see Queen's Gambit. So when am I going to be a grandmaster? And I'm like, you refuse to calculate, and the only time you're ever right is when you look at the engine and don't misread it, which some of you do. Anyway, I've never been mad at you. I'm more mad at you. Right. And when you say it's an easy win, it took you 30 seconds to calculate, then you're wrong. It is a win, but it's very hard to calculate. Okay, so here's what happened. This is all correct. Right. And the way you win this isn't the way you think you win it. If I was black and I was playing like a 1 minute game, I probably would do this. And that doesn't win. I'd probably do it anyway, because I'd be afraid this not only doesn't win, maybe I'd lose. So king d3 is actually fine. And after white makes a move, you don't play king c2. So he played here, which it doesn't matter what he does. And then black correctly moved his king the other way. 200 centidues. Thank you. The thing is, if we trade pawns, then black wins easily. If white takes this and black takes this, then we got no problem. Then we win. That's easy. So we have to not lose our f-pawn, but you're going to lose your f-pawn. Sorry. And what's funny is you're going to lose your f-pawn because I make you lose your f-pawn. So in the game he played here, which is what I would play if I was white, and black found g6. If we just move our king every move, it's a draw. But now white is stuck. White has to lose his f-pawn or trade it. The truth hurts. What's funny is, if white dilly-dallies, thanks 420, legalize it, then lots of stuff, thank you, and fly half. If white dilly-dallies and tries to like, aha, you're never going to win my pawn, I'm the greatest, okay? We're never going to trade pawns. Because the black pawn is on g6, now moving the king to b2 wins if you play king g3. Because I queen would check. Which is funny. And he did play king g3, but if you play king g5, I play here, and the pawns are gone. The pawns are gone next move. It doesn't matter how they're gone, but that's the end of white's counterplay. Okay, and then black wins easily. Yeah. White needs to queen his f-pawn, and so king g3 stops him from winning the f-pawn, but the king's too far from the g-pawn. When it takes the g-pawn, it's check. That's why he's winning. The pawn on the 7th rank is a draw. So he did play here, and then black's like, all right, I just win. And then he resigned, because in this position, I queen, and you can't even play f6. If your pawn was on f6, you're still losing. But because the king is here, it's easy. If the king was here and the pawn was here, it's a win, but it's more difficult. you have to have the king here and the pawn here. So a very accurate play by black, winning the D pawn, and then not immediately going for the pawn here. Let's immediately go for it. Let's play differently. The engine says it's still winning. Let me see. I mean, this is much better, obviously. Oh, now it says it's a draw. How did you say it was winning and now it's a draw? Wait a minute. What kind of engine do I have here? What's going on? It says mate and then it says draw. Oh my God. This is winning for black. If Peter's still watching, Peter's not going to believe this. Peter, you watching? Everybody else just go do something else. This isn't for you. After this move or this move, you don't take on B2. After here, this move wins. Oh my God. Thanks, Fly Half. Wow. King D3 wins, but king takes B2 does not. God damn. You got to get rid of that F pawn. That's white's counterplay. Black's winning here. Wow. King D3 winning. Not king takes B2. God damn. Julian Proleko says, the engine says that's right. That's right. Old lawyer dude subscribed. That's crazy. That you can still play king C2 and win as long as you go back to D3. Okay, so this is how the game went. And then black won easily and white resigned. That's amazing. You never go win this pawn because you gotta win this pawn. But at some point, when white played king G2, then black was like, all right, now you might say, why did white play king G2? That was stupid. If white doesn't play king G2, then, let's see, can I make a Karen joke here? Probably not. If you don't play king G2, then you're going to get you from behind. So if you go here, I go here. And we're going to trade the F pawns. But king G2, now you can't win my F pawn. I just keep moving my king with yours. But since your king is on G2, now I can go win this pawn. Because you're too far from my G pawn. Pretty good, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't easy at all. Yeah. The reason it's not easy is you can't just I'm gonna go win that B pawn and win. Now let's do that. Let's go win that B pawn and try to win. And this is a draw. So, yeah, you had to have some finesse, or as Bugs Bunny would say, finesse. But, yeah, that guy knew what he was doing. He queened, he took the D pawn, and then he hanging around the F pawn. He can't get rid of him. He hangs around. If we trade the F pawn and the G pawn, black wins easily. White needs that F pawn, so when black takes on B2, white can get some counterplay. And white can't stop the trade. Yeah. Yeah, he literally, and then, okay, he played crazy to stop the trade. King G3, King G2. But if he doesn't do that, then we come in from the rear, and, some kind of joke I can't make. NJ Crispy gifted a sub. Hooray, let's get that train going. Yeah. Now, here's the part that you don't understand, which is, don't understand anything, but the reason you don't understand why this is hard is because when these endgames occur, unlike 50 years ago, 100 years ago, there's no adjournment. Now, back in the day, games were adjourned. They would stop after 4 or 5 hours and play them the next day or 2 days later. Then you could figure out how to win, then you go win. Nowadays, you're playing a 4.5 hour game, a lot happened, you're exhausted, you have 10 minutes on your clock. It's not easy to think straight and calculate straight. It's tough. So when you play in the World Open and the Chicago Open like I did, Europeans are like, why are you playing 2 games a day? You're playing 2 5-hour games a day? and your brain just turns to mush. So most tournaments in Europe and world championships have 1 game a day and rest days and sick days because it's hard to play chess. And these kinds of end games, which are very interesting and require some finesse, usually you're exhausted when you get to them and you're not calculating as well. Tired, old. Etc. Go hype train. The truth hurts, yeah. It's real easy to make a mistake in chess, as Kasparov has found. It's really easy. Especially in king and pawn endings, those are tricky. Okay. Now here's an example of what I was talking about. Okay, they just traded queens on c6. This was a very sharp, complicated King's Indian. And the engine says white is better because white has an exchange for a pawn, but it's not easy to win. Naifa gave 5 subs. Thank you. Okay. Now, the engine says white's up like 0.5, 0.6. He's up in exchange for a pawn. This is a beautiful night. And black can just sort of chill. Rook e6, bishop f8, and just sit there. And it's hard for white to do anything. I guess if 2 supercomputers are playing, white would win in like 70 more moves. If 2 grandmasters who were really good were playing, I don't know if white would win or draw. Probably white would win. Maybe. Okay. However, black is not a grandmaster. White is. Now, black, this is very strange. I played him. And let me tell you how I played him. I played him in the UAE. In the UAE, I played in a team tournament, and we were knocked out. When we were knocked out, we were allowed to play in the open tournament and start late and get like half-point buys or something. So I played this guy. I won a really long endgame. And then me and Akobian and his wife, we wanted to go to Dubai and hang out and not stay in Al Ain and play in this dumb tournament. So we withdrew and we went to Dubai for a couple days. So I only played 1 game in the open tournament. It was against him, and I ended up winning a really long endgame. Now, here, black made like a beginner's blunder, and he's like 2,400 feet AIM. But it's move 43. They've played for 4 hours. They made the time control. Everybody's exhausted. And, he blundered. This threat wasn't available last move, but it just happened because of the pawn takes. Now, if you were doing puzzle battle, puzzle rush, tactics trainer, and this position popped up, you would solve it quickly. Well, I don't know about you guys, but most of you. And this guy would also solve it quickly. But it's not puzzle rush. It's a real game. It's real life. So, E4 is just double question mark. Yeah, if you miss one thing, the game's over. I'm sure you guys all have it, etc. Yeah, Rook takes d6, and he resigned. The game ended in 1 move after, 3.5, 4 hours of battling, and he's slightly worse the whole game. He just makes a 1-move blunder. And being able to keep your wits about you and defend when you've been worse the whole game against a higher rated player, it's easy to say, but it's hard to do. Random Bulldog upgraded. The more you upgrade, the more money I get. Yeah. Right, and people do that all the time. They play, they get a drawn ending. They've been fighting for hours and hours and hours. Then they make a move and resign. I can show you 20 of my games, 10 by me and 10 by my opponent, where it was a really hard game, and then between move 40 and 60, one of us made the worst move ever and resigned. And you're like, damn, that was a waste of 5 hours. What are you going to do? And the better you get at chess, and the higher rated you get, and the stronger you get, the less you blunder in these tough positions. So a lot of these super grandmasters, They draw and win bad positions because they're good at that. That's why their rating is high. They don't just give up like Kasparov. Now, obviously, I'm teasing Kasparov the last few days for obvious reasons. But forget about his play. He didn't play well. Forget about his speed. He played too slow. Okay, he's old, doesn't play anymore. That's fine. Okay, what he did that's unforgivable. Like if he was his own coach, if a clone of him was his coach, it's unforgivable that he's resigning early in blitz games. Super GMs don't do that. They don't resign early, especially in a blitz game. Right? They fight. He had no fight in him. He's like, oh, my position's bad, I resign. I mean, that's ridiculous. His resignation against Korobov is absurd. He shouldn't have resigned against Yuriy. He shouldn't have resigned. There were like 4 games he shouldn't have resigned. He might have lost all 4, but nobody else in that tournament was resigning those positions. Shouldn't have resigned against Nepomniachtchi, even though he's dead. Shouldn't resign on move 7. You know. He shouldn't resign. Yeah. So yeah, he lost his fighting spirit, which is, that's what he's known for. I mean, he fights. I mean, calculates well, and used to play a ton of theory and play super active and get active games and not draw very much. And when you're like, oh, I'm worse, I resign. That's not Kasparov. That's somebody else. Now, obviously, he's going to play worse than he used to. He's old. He's going to play slower than he used to. Okay. But resigning when he's worse or thinks he's lost in a blitz game? Come on. You resign a blitz game when it's over. You don't see like Andrew Tang and Naroditsky resigning blitz games and bullet games. They're getting checkmated. Eric Rosen, oh no, my queen, they get stalemated. I mean, you have the fighting spirit, and when you're just like, I resign on move 10 and 15, you can't do that. Ridiculous. Right. Yeah, he just resigning early. Resigning against Korobov was weird. His position wasn't good, but it's not, he wouldn't even consider resigning it. It's a blitz game. It's not like, 40 moves in 2 hours where you still wouldn't resign. He's resigning in a blitz game because he's strategically lost. Like, so what? Yeah. Always resign. Right. Yeah, I mean, he lost his fighting spirit. That's, yeah. And basically, if you want to be top 10, top 20 in the world, and you have these bad positions, you got to defend like a monster, like Leko, like Karpov, like et cetera, like Karyakin. You can't be like, go in here and then you resign. That's why you never heard of the guy. Because, the guy's, one move blunder. Okay. So, Alexander Onishuk's one of my favorite players. He's very underrated. And what I mean by underrated, I'm not saying his rating is inaccurate. That's not what I'm saying. Is you people, are we going to have a house meeting? You people don't understand how good Onishuk is. You're like, Onishuk, ridiculous. Give me Fabiano, give me Wesley So, give me Naka, give me Jeffrey Jean, give me Dominguez. Onishuk, okay. Onishuk's really good. He's good strategically. He's good positionally. He's good tactically. His opening preparation's very good. He's really good. Onishuk's really good. Onishuk could draw Carlson all day. Now, he wouldn't, but he could. Onishuk's good. Okay? Now, let me tell you an Onishuk story. Story time. When I was at the World Team Championship in Ningbo, China, I was one of the U.S. coaches, and my job was to coach whoever wanted to get coached. Kamsky never wanted to get coached by anybody. He worked by himself. And I coached Schulman 1 game, Onishuk 1 game, Hess 1 game, and Yasser for like 6 games. Yasser was the main guy. The 1 game I analyzed I worked with Onishuk was very funny prep. We prepped the opening, and we went really deep, and it would be like equal or 0.1 better for him. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. This guy's no good. I'm going to win. Equal's fine. 0.1's fine. Doesn't matter. And I'm like, and he's like, no, don't worry about it. And I'm like, all right. So he played the guy. They played one of the openings we looked at. The position was equal. And then he just tore the guy up like the guy couldn't play. He beat the guy like the guy didn't know how to play chess at all. And I was like, all right. And he was right. Everything he said happened. So yeah, it doesn't matter. This guy, I'm going to destroy this guy. Okay, so here Onishuk is playing Doofus. Onishuk has the 2 bishops, right? He doesn't have the what else, but he does have an extra pawn, and white has doubled pawns. So Onishuk's really been outplaying this guy. Okay? Onishuk, he's doing a good job. Okay. And the game should go on 10, 15 more moves, and eventually I think black should win. The engine says 1.3. And white has a lot of moves that would make the game go on a long time. Queen e2 is the engine's preferred move. Then trade queens, and black should win the endgame with his extra pawn and 2 bishops. I'm not saying he would, but he should. Instead, the game ended immediately. Immediately. Don't blink. Okay? And that's what happened. And, white was in time trouble here. I think it moved 31. And the reason these blunders happen, I've talked about this many times, especially to my private students when I was teaching, is you're putting pieces in a position where they can get captured, but you've decided that it's safe. So an example would be if you're the mob boss and you know there's a hit on you, there's 2 things you can do. You can be where they know you're going to be and get 1,000 bodyguards with machine guns. You could do that. Or you could go somewhere they don't know where you are. You're hiding. Nobody knows where you are. Now, I know which one of those is safer. When they don't know where you are and they can't find you, that's pretty safe. When they know where you are, that's not as safe. So in chess, if your pieces can't be legally captured, that's pretty safe. When they can be legally captured, but you're like, no, I calculated it, everything's fine. Oh, I missed that move. Okay, I resign. You can't do that. And low-rated players do that all the time. They're like, this move is safe. Their opponent makes a move, they're like, oh, then they resign. And that's what happened here. Obviously, it's brilliant, or I wouldn't show you. But it is brilliant. So, okay, white played. Also, I think this move makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people would play this move if they didn't see the refutation. This move actually very reasonable. So I shouldn't blame the guy. Played knight d4. He wants to get rid of the 2 bishops. His knight's in a threatening position. And it looks like if black wants to keep the 2 bishops, he should play bishop d7. And after bishop d7, the engine says black is doing great. And Onishuk said, you will know my name is the Lord when I play this move. And the guy was like, well, based on my name, we have different lords, but all right. Oh. Never give up. Hey, Indo Queen. Anybody? Why do high-level GMs go to normal GMs for coaching and analysis? If you've watched sports before, which you probably haven't, soccer, basketball, American football, baseball, hockey, did you ever notice the coach and the other coaches on the team aren't as good as the players? No? Tennis? You think the tennis coach is better than the player? Yeah, coaches usually aren't better than the players. They're coaches. I hope you learned a lot from that. I'm going to guess you didn't. All right. That is correct. The guy's engine told him what to do, and he's like, there's no way he did that. Yeah. And then he played a move that Onishuk first saw many years ago before you were born in the game Gotcha versus Bitch. Bam! Oh, no, he didn't. Oh, yes, he did. By the way, this is reminiscent of a previous tactic we looked at when white played bishop c3 and black played knight c3, rook c3. I'm sure you remember that. Yeah, here it is. I found it immediately. Bishop c3, rook takes c3, almost the same tactic. Almost. He's giving up a rook instead of a queen, but it's winning for the same reason. Yeah. Queen takes c5. God damn. And then the knight wasn't defended as well as he thought it was. And this move wins a piece. Because if you take my queen and I take your knight, I still win your queen, but I'll have a bishop left. So after queen c5, he resigned. And, the guy with white, with the exception of maybe Peter, is better than you. But, when you're playing somebody much better and they're outplaying you and they're probably winning and you're suffering, it's easy to make a blunder like that because you're not expecting queen takes c5. If it's like puzzle, battle, tactics trainer, and the guy who had white in this game is trying to solve it, he will find queen c5. He will. And when you guys do these puzzles and you solve them, you think you guys are the greatest. Then in the tournament games, you don't see any of that. Truth hurts. Wouldn't even solve that puzzle. Damn. That's the truth. Remember, chess is not easy. Yeah, Onishuk's really good. If Onishuk or Jeffrey Zhang make a deep run, I won't be surprised. Onishuk's better than you guys know that he is. Now, obviously, he's old now, but he's run like the triathlon, or he's one of those athletes that swims and runs and bikes and dances and does backflips and spins in a circle and then keeps the position for hours, the plank position. He's one of those guys. Yeah. Yeah, he bikes and swims and runs. What's wrong with him? So he's in good shape. Yeah. Dance in front of the mirror, right. So it's funny, Jessie February posted on Twitter, she said, do you know who this guy is? When she was in Sochi today, and posted a picture of her and Eric Rosen. Right? And Eric Rosen responded with, that's the guy from my mirror. So, there you go. Yeah, I don't think Onishuk does nap or watch TV as much as I do. I think you're right. I've played Onishuk 3 times. I drew him in the World Open where I tied for first in 2002, and he beat me in 2 different U.S. championships. Truth hurts. Well, I don't think Jeffrey's going to win the World Cup, but Jeffrey's good. Also, Onishuk's good. Knight e6 is legal. There's no doubt about it. Then queen takes queen check. Pawn takes knight. Resigns. Yeah, that was a really nice move, queen c5. It's nice unless you have white. When you have white and the guy does that, you're like, why am I playing chess here? This isn't fun. Yeah. Okay, next. Next. This was really cool. If Peter's still here, he's going to like this too. Even Julian will like it. So this has a very limited amount of material, but it's really complicated because all the pieces are hanging. Okay, so I'll give you a sample variation. Let's say I take the bishop. Okay, now I'm a bishop ahead. White obviously has to take on f5. Takes here. And this is very, very, very drawish. Nobody's better. Just 100% draw. Okay. And you would think black should be better, so he wouldn't do that because this pawn's really, really, really weak. So maybe black will play here or here and try to win this pawn. Okay, instead, black did something very scary. Very scary. He played rook takes e3, scaring the audience. Very scary. And here, white made a bad move. And again, it has to do with your fighting spirit. And if I'm white here, I see rook takes f5. If I think it draws or wins, I play rook takes f5. If I'm sure that it loses, then I move my hanging bishop. Bishop f3. You can't play knight takes h4 because the rook is hanging. And I would try to, win these pawns through my bishop and draw rook versus rook and knight. So bishop f3 tries to draw in a bad way, and this tries to draw in a good way. And if I play this move, I calculate, and I figure it out. And if it's a draw or a win, I play it. If it's a loss, I don't play it. And that has to do with your fighting spirit. And if you're just like, I don't know if this works, so I'll play it. Or, I don't know if this works, so I'll play here. That's both wrong. You calculate whether it works or not. You don't guess. You don't say, it works. And then when I show you it doesn't, you're like, oh. Or, it doesn't work. And then I'm like, it does. And you're like, oh. Or, if you guess that it works or doesn't, and it turns out that it does or doesn't, you're not right if you didn't calculate it. So hopefully you're all ashamed of yourselves. And Podian subscribed. Hooray. Yeah. I'd figure it out and I'd lose on time. Right. Yeah, exactly. Now, what some people would do, if you can call them people, is they might say, my opponent did that. My opponent's good. He figured that out. Then they would go here. If you have no time on your clock, that might be the right decision. Okay, so he took, which is bad. Now, he might have lost if he went here. He might not have. After here, the game is over. Ridiculous. Black only has one move. You can't take with the king. You got to take the bishop. So you take with the pawn. And you go here. Now, if nothing happens, black wins. With the pawns here, if black just moves his king and his pawn up, this is just an easy win. Okay, if white's king is here, 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 he just resigns. The only reason he wouldn't lose is because he's winning the h-pawn. Okay, so he played here. Okay. Takes on f5, obviously doesn't lose, so here. And now you have to play king g5 because king f3, king g3, king e3. Anybody over like 2200 knows that's ridiculously lost. If you don't believe me, I'll make you believe me. All right, now you believe me. By the way, this position, if white's pawn is on h2 and black's pawn is on h7, black's winning. If the pawn's on h2 and black's pawn is on one of these squares, it's a draw. So, but once the pawn has moved, it's always lost. The pawn needs to be on h2, and you need your opponent's pawn to have moved. Once it's on h3, h4, it's lost. Okay, so he played king g5, and when he played rook takes knight, he should have seen this position. Black only has one move. It's very easy analysis. For somebody who's playing in the World Cup, analyzing this accurately is easy. Takes, here, here, here. These moves are all forced. You have to take the pawn. Now, the reason I'm mad at white for playing rook takes f5 check is that there's two moves here that look okay for black, and they both win. Both moves win. Now, he played the easy win. He played king f6, and white resigned. This is the only legal move, and then here. And then I queen and you don't. Okay. Now, the other way to try to win is f4, which also wins. So it's really ridiculous to play rook takes f5 check. And even though white queens, that's not good enough. And then check and takes. I mean, so, from a grandmaster perspective, rook takes f5 is a ridiculous move. Because the only normal variation where black has two moves here, king here and here, and they both win. So I don't know what the guy was thinking when he took. I mean, you wouldn't take unless you thought it was a draw. Otherwise, you would go here and try to draw. 2 against 1, rook and knight doesn't beat a rook, etc. I'm not saying he would have drawn, but this just loses without any thought. That's why black played rook takes e3. He knew the guy couldn't do that. He knew that that won for him. He figured it out. If this move had drawn, he wouldn't have played rook takes. He would have played rook here, and tried to win this pawn and so forth. So now you know who the higher rated player is. The guy who figured it out. The other guy didn't figure it out, and it's just calculation. And the guy's like, it's late in the game. I'll just be lazy. Terrible. Boo, boo. Now, your question is silly. Making a rook also wins. And I think you're wrong, but I'm not sure. I just assume you're wrong because you said it. No, making a rook does not win. Yeah. Just because you suggested it. Yeah. Then king here draws and king here draws. Yeah. Normally I would think it was winning, but when you said does making a rook win, then I knew it wasn't. Yeah. See, you can be silly all you want, but then you'll be like Naka, you'll make a knight and you'll lose to Mamajaro. Wretched Talon subscribed to tier 1. Hooray. Yeah, king f6, the guy just resigned. Yeah. So, yeah. That was quicker. You can't play rook takes f5 check, and it's forcing, and you just lose. I mean, you can't do that. You can't. You can play bad positional moves and lose because you don't know they're bad positionally. But you can't play a tactical move and then resign. Don't play it. Terrible. Now, you have to understand, when tactics are played at the top level, and there's checks and captures and such, I'm not saying they calculated accurately. I'm saying they calculated as well as they could, sometimes accurately, and they concluded the result based on that, and then they did it. If they calculated it loses, they don't do it. If they calculated it wins, they do it. And a lot of lower-rated players just like, I hope this works, but I'm not going to calculate it. I'm old, or I'm lazy, or I don't know. Let's see if it works. And, I mean, you can't do that at a professional level. You can't, I hope this works. That's not how you do it. Ridiculous. Never been so mad. All right. Last game, which you guys have been begging for. I already prepared everything, so you guys can ask what you want. This game, some people said was the game of the year. Must have been a slow year. This game's all right. Now, as you all know, I'll pretend there's somebody here. That means they don't know. I never knew about Mads Anderson, whether it was 1, 2, or 3 people. Because there's a Mads Anderson who's very good at backgammon. There's a Mads Anderson who's very good at poker. There's a Mads Anderson who's very good at chess. And I was wondering, is it 1, 2, or 3 people? It turns out it's 2 people. The guy who's good at chess is only good at chess, and the other guy is good at backgammon and poker. So there's 2 Mads Andersons. There's another Mads Anderson who is some famous, like, maybe soccer player. Yeah, there were like 4 Mads Andersons that were in Wikipedia. I think it's soccer, or is it car racing? Anyway, this is the chess guy. So if people think it's the same guy, the backgammon poker guy is going to be in a lot of trouble because they think that he got crushed. There's a Polish bridge player who was like 2,500 FIDE, Polish junior chess champion, and quit chess to play bridge, and he's better at bridge. 1,500 centidues. Feather Light 2, thank you. I forgot what his name was. It's a Polish name. You're like, oh, that's Polish. But he's good at chess and bridge, as well as Irina Levitina, who is top 5 in the world for women in chess. quit chess, and she's top 5 or 10 in the world for women in bridge. So there you go. Don't forget it. Oh, better at choker. That's a good question. Yeah. And so on. Okay, so this is last but not least. This is the game of the round. White's like 2580 FIDE, and black is maybe 70 points less. The ratings are similar. Now, this game doesn't impress me as much as it'll impress you, because I've seen all this before, okay? And I actually talked to, my people in show business, and they said, well, what if Brad Pitt was black? And I said, that don't impress me much. It doesn't impress me. Sorry. This reminds me of 2 games. One game you know, and one game you do not know. One of the best games in Lone Pine, the year it was played, in the mid-'70s, which actually, in the Informant won one of the best games of the year, was Bob Avery was white. He's a Michigan player you've never heard of. Still alive. I still get crazy emails from him. And he was playing Gligorich. And Gligorich did something similar that happened in this game. And then the other game, the famous one, is Byrne Fisher, the good Byrne, Robert Byrne, not the stupid Donald Byrne game where Fisher sacks his queen for 40 pieces. The game from the U.S. Championship that Fisher famously won. That's very similar to what happened in this game. And I'm actually surprised that Mads Andersen allowed the stuff that happened in this game. It's been seen before, and it's usually good for the guy who's doing it. So I'm surprised he played a little loose, a little fast and loose. Yeah. Shania Twain also does it. Yeah. Okay. So the opening was boring. They had virtually a symmetrical position, but not literally. This is almost symmetrical, not quite. It's the boring world of Niels Bohr. All right. And since it's the boring world of Niels Bohr, obviously you would bet on Mads Andersen. Niels Bohr, Mads Andersen, come on. They're like, that, son. Pablo's like, Niels Bohr, who's that? Okay. Etc. All right. So it continued to be boring, as was the style at the time. Now, one thing I've taught my advanced students, because my lower rated students, I just tell them that this is a bishop. And then when I ask them later, they go, pawn? I teach them that. Is in any position where you castle kingside, when you move your rook off of the defense of your f-pawn, you have to realize that could be a target later. And sometimes you're like, there's no way that's a target. No way. And in this position, I wouldn't be too scared of f2 being a target here. But I would be aware of it because I move my rook off of f1. That's what I do. Okay. So rook e8. And it still looks really boring. And the engine says it's equal. Always play bishop f1. You can't ignore that. c5. Engine says it's about equal. Okay. I take you. You take me. The engine still says equality. Okay. g3. Looks a little risky. Rook c8, lining up with the queen. All right. Again, it's about equal. Bishop h3, pinning the knight. Not so bad. Still about equal. cd. And here the engine says you can take it with the rook, knight, or the pawn, and they're all about equal. It slightly prefers... Well, it's changing its mind. It doesn't even have a mind, it's changing it. Now it prefers knight takes. Okay, he played knight takes. The engine says this is fine. Bishop b4, pinning the knight. So it looks dangerous with the rook on c8. So, I'd be scared. Knight e2. Okay, now knight e2 is actually the losing move. It's the losing move for 3 reasons. One is it gives away the f3 square. So the knight could go to f3. Obviously, if the knight's on d4, I can take it. Second, it blocks the queen from f2, making sacking on f2 more palatable. And almost as important, it lets black play d4 at some point, and that's going to be very dangerous. So knight e2 actually loses by force. And in this position, if two engines were playing, white would not lose. White probably has more than one move that's okay. Unfortunately, one of the moves is a move I say never play, and one of the moves I say always play. But it prefers the move to never play. It wants to play f3 because now the knight is defending f3, the queen's defending the second rank, and we've stopped knight e4 forever. You got to stop knight e4 because of the double pin here. And white didn't stop knight e4, he just defended his knight. That move is too passive and too meek. You could also play bishop takes here to ease the pressure by trading pieces. Or you could play a3 and force a reckoning. Like, do something about that bishop. Okay? So, if I was white in a position like this, and my opponent played rook c8, I would be very worried about cd, bishop b4, even if it wasn't good. I'd still be worried about it. So the engine is like, move your queen or play knight b5 attacking the bishop so you won't get pinned. And white's literally didn't care. White's like, I'll go here. If you want to pin my knight, I don't care. And then, then he probably should have cared. He should have talked to Ice-T before he played bishop h3. Now his position's fine, but now he's got to play accurately, not his strong suit. Okay, and knight e2 loses. Now he's losing. Too much attack for black. Okay, black played knight e4, and knight e4 is a mistake, and the reason it's a mistake is the most amazing move I've shown on the stream so far. That move wasn't played. If Peter is here and Julian's here, they'll be like, oh my God. You guys will also be impressed, but you won't understand how you should be impressed. You'll just be a little impressed. Julian and Peter will be like, I thought I was good at chess until the engine said this move. Queen takes e4, the only move. And obviously both players missed that. There's just no way to see that. That's crazy like Fox News. That's crazy. And the idea is if you take, rook takes, forks these, the queen moves somewhere. That's somewhere. And it's 3 pieces for a queen. And the engine says it's equal. Even if we get the 2 pieces for the rook by doing this, it says this is equal too. My rook can go here. This is hanging. My bishop can go to f1 if you check me. This rook can't get into the game. This is equal. All zeros. Okay. Now, obviously, neither player saw or cared about queen takes e4. It's just not a move you look at. And that's why knight e4 is not the best move, because if you're playing an engine, it plays queen takes e4 and you don't win. If you don't play knight e4 and it's 2 engines playing, then black plays knight e5 and black's position's excellent. Because, it's terrible. Knight e2 is terrible. Yeah. Okay. Now, obviously, black didn't play queen takes e4 because he wasn't cheating with an engine. So, Yeah. Charlotte Chester is like, say, what? Queen takes e4. God damn. Right. So now, if you're not going to sack your queen, which is fine, you have to watch out for knight f2. So the engine's second best move is rook f1. And Mads played a3. He went from mad to bad. Sort of like going from ashy to classy. That's what he did. Right. And that's pathetic. Sorry. That's pathetic. Okay. Knight takes f2 is the only move I'm scared of if I'm white. If you analyze knight f2 for 2 minutes and you're 25-80 FIDE, you don't play a3. So I don't understand. I don't know. Did he look at knight f2 and go, oh, yeah, that's fine for me? I think he just didn't look at knight f2. It's much more obvious here than it was in the Fischer game with Byrne or in the Avery game with Gligorich. It's much more obvious. I mean, it's ridiculous not to look at knight f2. If you looked at knight f2, it's ridiculous to think it's okay. Now, maybe for a lower-rated player, you're like, I don't understand. Okay, if Peter was white here, he's 2,300 something, he'd be scared to death of knight f2, even if it didn't work. Okay, and it does work, but he'd be scared to death of it. He might not play a3 because knight f2, and he's like, I don't even want to look at that. I give up. And this guy's like, yeah, play knight f2. What do I care? I almost think he didn't see knight f2. I mean, I almost think like he was like, oh shit, knight f2. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to believe he looked at it and thought, yeah, that's okay. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you to play queen takes e4, but if I'm white here and I'm not playing that move, I'm playing that move. Because, I'm afraid of knight f2. I'm afraid. All right, so knight f2. Now, he didn't play king takes f2. Let's play it. Got to play something. And it's plus a billion or a trillion. I mean, it really is a plus a billion or a trillion. It's insane. Yeah, the engine announces mate. This is the quick mate. Queen f3 check. One legal move. Bishop c5 check. I mean, this is ridiculous. You can't go here because your knight's pinned. It's just mate. Come on. What's wrong with everybody? All right. And then, knight d4. I'm looking for a move that doesn't win, but I can't find it. This is mate in 5, and this is mate in 4. The rook is overworked. All right. So he has to play king g2, obviously, because king f1 didn't work. And now the reason knight e2 is bad is d4 check. So, okay, if you play queen e4, that's the engine move. And knight e4 obviously hangs the queen. So, in my opinion, not knowing the answer, I'm guessing, I think he didn't look at knight f2. I don't think he looked at knight f2 and went, oh yeah, that's fine. I think he just forgot about it. He played a3 and he forgot about Dre. Okay, so he knows king takes f2 loses. He knows that, because that wasn't a lot of variations. Okay. Now, I'm threatening knight takes d1, and god damn, Jesus Christ. Okay, so he played take the bishop check. I mean, so black's a pawn up here. Black's up a pawn, and he's like totally winning. So I think he just didn't see knight f2. I think he just lost his mind for a second. All right, so he tried to defend, but he failed miserably. The lesson is never try. And he didn't resign, which is good. Okay, now he forked the knights. Okay, and black literally didn't care. Every move wins for black. The move he played, both these knight moves win, and d4 wins, unleashing the latent potential of the bishop, attacking the knight, etc. He played this, that's fine. Knight e5 also wins. Okay, now, he played bishop c1 attacking the queen. If he takes the knight, oh, give me the knight. Okay, which he did not do. Then I check, and you have to play here, because there's no other legal move. And then I go here, and now, now you resign. Problem is, I'm threatening queen f2, king h1, d4, discovered, triple checkmate. If you play here, which looks like a good defense, yeah, looks like, then I play queen e3 check. Obviously, king h1, knight f2 is ridiculous. So you play king f1. Also, it's, frankly ridiculous. And then d4 and you resign. Your queen's hanging. You can't take the bishop because of queen f2 mate. Okay, resigns. Always resign. If you play queen g1, queen f3, god damn. Okay. All right, so instead of taking the knight, losing immediately, he played bishop c1 attacking the queen. It's lucky that he did, because now we see the beautiful finish. Beautiful. Okay? I mean, beautiful. Now, every move wins according to the engine. There's 4 or 5 winning moves for black. But he played by far the best one, Knight G4. Okay, and the idea is if you take, not only do I fork your king and queen, but it's checkmate. Now that's a checkmate. Okay, so you can't take the queen because you get checkmated. Getting checkmated is bad. And the engine says black is only plus 10 here. If white plays perfectly, king G2, the only move. I mean, black's plus 10, but. And then this move is plus 1,000. This move is plus 1,000. Knight F4 check is a funny move. It's hard to understand, actually. D4 check is plus 1,000. This is plus 1,000. Let's play this because it's funny. That's a move I have a tough time understanding. You take with the queen, which I would, D4 check, then I would play king H3, and then check, and I would play king H4. I mean, I would. And then queen E7 check. Oh, damn, this doesn't look good. And then you go here. That's what I would do. And then never play F6. Queen D7 also wins. Yeah, I mean, obviously, black's winning here. That's the worst king in chess history. Okay. Now, luckily, he didn't play king G2 because we got to see the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in the history of Earth. He played rook D3 attacking the queen. Lucky for us. And black played the best move, D4. God damn. Okay, now why did he play D4? Thanks for asking. The bishop controls G2, so now knight H2 is mate. Knight H2 wasn't mate previous move because of king G2. You can't take the queen either way because of knight here mate. You can't take the knight because of queen here mate. Now you got to stop knight here mate, which isn't easy to do. I told you the mate in one move, and it's still hard to stop it. I mean, obviously you can play a silly move, but I mean, how can you stop knight H2? How do you stop knight H2 mate? The answer is fries. So he stopped knight H2 mate. He did. He played rook D1. Now knight H2 is not mate because of king E1. Obviously, knight H2 wins, but he played a really, really, really nice move here. Really nice. Nice. Really nice. Was it nice? Yeah. Right, I mean, allowing knight F2 is insane. If you look at the Fischer game with Byrne or the game Avery Gligorich, when they play knight F2, you're like, huh? Like, you don't even know. Then later you're like, yeah, okay. Here it's like knight F2 and like that's it. You're like, oh my God. This is much easier than those. Just like, you're just crashing through. Yeah. That's right, D-Bass, because it's all about that base. About that base. Bam! God damn. And the point is, earlier I explained after knight H2, white has king E1. After this, white does not have king E1 because the rook is defending E1. So the only legal move is this and then mate. God damn. And that guy was the low-rated player. Probably mad shouldn't allow, knight F2 next time. So some people said that was the game of the year. I'm not willing to say that because white's defense was so silly, but that is the game of the tournament so far. Might be the game of the year. I mean, if I had black in that game, I'd be really happy. I'd be really happy. Really happy. I would be like, man, you only play knight takes F2. God damn. So, yeah, that wasn't... that's knight F2, come on. Hooray. This game was played like 8 hours ago. Every game that I showed today was played in the World Cup today. Okay, just so you know, tomorrow I'm also on Chess TV. I'll just do some random stream. Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing Arena Kings. from 1 to 5 Eastern. And then at 7 Eastern, I'm teaching a class on Zoom. The classes we have Wednesday night. You can sign up for that on the website and so forth. And so forth. Then starting Saturday for a long time, Saturday and then for a lot of days, I'm doing World Cup coverage that for chess.com, which you saw today with Naroditsky, Ifan, and Topolov. It'll generally be me and Naroditsky. Danny Wrench maybe sometimes. Ifan might hop on, and you might have a special guest like Anand at some point. But, Anand's going to be like for 10 minutes. So basically me and Naroditsky for most of it. And that'll be July 17th to 30th. Almost every day I'll be doing commentary. So the more commentary I do, the more they pay me. Yeah, it's true. So forth. Anyway, that'll be on the chess.com Twitch page. Twitch? Twitch. I get Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and I'm probably missing 2 of them. I only have Twitter and Twitch. I feel like I have something else. Twitter, Twitch. I don't have Instagram. Don't have Snapchat. Don't have Facebook. Does that thing still exist from 20 years ago? What's the thing that was with Facebook, that rivaled Facebook, that they gave up? MySpace. Does MySpace still exist? Does it exist? Yeah. I have a Discord, yeah. MySpace does exist? Technically. Man, I'm getting a lot of no and yes. You guys can argue amongst yourselves. I used to go on TikTok, and then I realized I was more than 6 years old. So I deleted it. But, sometimes trying to learn sends me a TikTok that's not funny. But I've heard of TikTok. Yeah. MySpace does exist? Wow. Karen has AOL email, and so does Wes Berger. So they still exist. 500 centijuice. Thank you. I've heard of OnlyFans, but I've never been there. I'm sure it's great. You just went to MySpace right now? Damn. I mean, the song White and Nerdy by Weird Al, he talks about MySpace. That's one of the things he mentions. So, No, I haven't spoken to Anand in a long time. Probably in St. Louis was the last time we spoke. That was probably about 3 years ago. I don't think we've spoken since. We're guys, so whatever. When we see each other, we're like, hey. Let's see. I've heard of Reddit. I've been to Reddit. Usually because somebody says this is on Reddit, go look at it. I'm not like sitting home going, I'll go on Reddit now. I've never done that. But if somebody's like, hey, here's a link to Reddit and look what they're saying about you, then I might go. Etc. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow night, and I'll see you Wednesday, either for the class I'm having Wednesday night or for the chess.com Arena Kings where I'll be doing commentary. All right, now who do I raid? I raid you. You raid me. Thanks, Peter, for the things. And buy Peter's book. Do as I say. Let's see. Who am I raiding? I spelled raid wrong. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I'm kidding a little, but I'm not kidding at all. All right. Let's see. Man, this didn't work out well. It's like on caps lock. Yeah, it was on caps lock. And I spelled raid wrong. That might have worked now. Okay, it worked. All right, see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that stream. Bye.